fantasy experts with me, Nick Whalen and Jeff Erickson. So we wanted to start a little broad today. We're going to get a little bit more detailed as the days go on. We'll get into our positional rankings and stuff like that. Wanted to start with just how we're looking in a PPR league at our top 10 and the top of the board for drafts coming up that I know a lot of people are going to be involved in here over the next few weeks. So I'm going to start with mine, gentlemen, and you guys get to grade me afterward, okay? So number 1, wide receiver Jamar Chase. I think that is pretty consistent throughout the fantasy drafting. People out there and everybody looking at Chase number 1 expect a lot of receptions, a lot of production there in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. I went Saquon Barkley number 2, which I have a feeling my friend Nick Whalen's going to have an issue with. But touchdown machine, we see him become a different running back there in Philadelphia last season. I am wondering if we see even more production out of him in the passing game this year than we saw a season ago. The 3 and 4 were very tough for me, gentlemen. Bijan Robinson, I put 3. Jahmyr Gibbs, 4. I love Bijan Robinson, apparently not as much as Nick Whalen. But I am looking for... Also, who's the back that's just on a little bit better, more consistent offense? And I don't know if I don't trust this Atlanta offense nearly as much as I trust Philadelphia and Detroit. So I'm going to go Bijan there. I understand we're looking at the numbers, what he did a season ago, both in the running game and the passing game. It's incredible. I think he absolutely is a top 4 pick, should be. But I'm going to go with him 3, Jahmyr Gibbs 4, Justin Jefferson. It's just year in, year out. You know the production you're going to get with him. Number 5. Number 6, I went CD Lamb. Look, Dak Prescott coming back healthy. He gets some help on the other side of the field this year with George Pickens coming over. I think Jake Ferguson's going to attract a lot of attention as well. I see a lot of targets, a lot of receptions for CD Lamb. Christian McCaffrey, I know we're going to have a little bit longer discussion about this. I jumped him all the way back up to 7. I think if we get a near healthy Christian McCaffrey, he's going to look much like he did a couple years ago. And then I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit with Puka Nacua. I think he is a highly drafted guy right now. Maybe not the production you've looked for over the past couple years, but I've talked about my love for the Rams, and if I think the Rams are running hot this year, Puka Nacua's got to be a big part. Jonathan Taylor, not quite the pass catcher as some of these other running backs, but consistent production and one of the go-to weapons in that offense this year in Indianapolis. I would go with him, number 9. And then Malik Nabers coming in at 10. He's going to have the best quarterback he's had play with him during his career. And that's not saying a lot about an aged Russell Wilson there. But I'll put him in at number 10 because I've seen Nabers do better with worse. So, Nick, what did I miss here? What do you hate about my rankings before we get to yours? Bijan.
Well, look, when we're talking about the amount of talent around the NFL right now, it's pretty hard to put together a top 10 that you don't feel great about. I would say your outlier here, Kelley, is Jonathan Taylor. I think he's the guy that you will not see in a ton of top 10s right now, especially if you're talking a full point per reception fantasy football league. He's somebody who tends to go in that middle, even to the end of round 2, if you look at expert league drafts right now. So you're definitely higher than market on Jonathan Taylor. And I understand it. Obviously, if he stays healthy, he has a chance to be a top 5 running back, but do have some concerns, of course, about that Colts offense overall. The quarterback situation feels like it could end up being a disaster. And, Jonathan Taylor has missed significant time in 3 of his last 5 seasons. One of those years, of course, was the contract holdout, but he doesn't necessarily have a fully clean bill of health. So that's the one that I would push back on the most. I'm with you in terms of some of those veteran receivers. You got to get Justin Jefferson in there. You got to get CD Lamb in there. I actually have Lamb just ahead of Jefferson. Now, I think Jefferson is the better player, but we're also talking about a quarterback in Minnesota who has played in 1 preseason game, has never taken a regular season snap. And I think we look at what Sam Darnold was able to do for the Vikings last year, and you just kind of assume, Kevin O'Connell, he's a quarterback whisperer. He'll do the same with J.J. McCarthy. Maybe that's the case. There does seem to be nothing but positive buzz around J.J. McCarthy, but I want to see it first. Like, if I'm picking at number 5 and both Jefferson and Lamb are on the board, I'm going to lean CD Lamb there because I trust a healthy Dak Prescott more than I do J.J. McCarthy sight unseen. And, obviously the addition of George Pickens, maybe that does take some targets away from CD Lamb, but this is the first time in years that CD Lamb has had a true number 2 opposite him, right? You got to go all the way back to his first and second year in the NFL when Amari Cooper was a member of the Cowboys. And I don't think there's going to be too much of a give and take here. I think if anything, defenses having to worry about George Pickens maybe opens things up even more for CD Lamb. Jeff, do you have any critiques for our guy Kelley?
No, I would just say we're talking about Nabers. He's probably quarterback proof. Jonathan Taylor, there's a big demarcation between first half Jonathan Taylor and second half Jonathan Taylor. Taylor was amazing in the fantasy playoffs last year. Now, maybe that was health related. I would say the one drag on his value is he's not that involved in the passing game. Fewer than 20 receptions each of the last 2 years. And let's face it, Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, they're not check down artists. They're not really good at finding him in the flat. In fact, sometimes they take Taylor out of the game on third down. Remember that critical game against Houston 2 years ago just to get into the playoffs, how they took Taylor out in the critical play of the game. And that does scare me a little bit that they still haven't figured that out, that he needs to be on the field at all times. But we're picking nits. I mean, this is the thing is we're talking top 10 players. We all like these guys. In fact, our top 5 and 6, they're all the same players. We may shuffle up the order. In fact, if you can choose where you want to draft, sometimes I like drafting 5th. I get my choice of those guys and a better guy coming back in the next round. That's one of the things I like about that there when we're talking about looking at draft position, all that. Let's have the Christian McCaffrey discussion here because I have some trust issues with the Niners. I really don't know if I can trust them to tell me that Christian McCaffrey is going to be okay this year. We were talking earlier about, do you draft early? Do you bet early? Christian McCaffrey missed all the preseason, but all along the Niners like, oh, it's okay. It's just, this is out of abundance of caution that we're holding him out of the preseason. Turns out we find out 2 hours before the Monday night game in week 1 that no, he's really not okay. And he's going to miss time. You could have waited until after the first round of week of games to draft, and you still would have gotten the McCaffrey question wrong. That's the one thing that's holding me back a little bit there on drafting him, but I still put him in my top 10 now because he could be the 1.1 when he's healthy. If Trent Williams is healthy, if this revamped offensive line is working as it should, because the play calling is great. We know McCaffrey's skills are great. It's just a question is how much do we trust here?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Jeff. I look, he's in all of our top 10s, I believe, right? I think he belongs there, but I don't know if I think I had him 7th. I don't know if if I was 7th and on the clock and he popped up, I would 100% sure go with him as opposed to maybe I have 8 right behind him with some of those concerns. I think it's a fair question, and really, I think it's a lot of what the 49ers season is going to rely upon. I mean, you got to have some of these older stars. They've got to show up and produce for this team. Nick, any quick thoughts on McCaffrey?
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you guys. I have him at number 7, and that it kind of feels like you're splitting the difference, right? And I think everybody is aware of the risk, so you no longer have to take him at the 1-1 or the 1-2 like you did last season. But if you were drafted a month ago, Christian McCaffrey was routinely going in round 2. And I feel like every draft board that I look at now, especially in expert, high money leagues, he's going in round 1. I think people recognize the risk, but they also recognize the upside. And really, you have a choice to make if you're picking, say, 7 or 8 overall. You could go with a safer commodity. You could go with someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson's on the board, Brian Thomas, Puka Nacua, etc. Those guys don't feel like they have the potential to burn you as badly as Christian McCaffrey does. But like Jeff said, if you're hunting for a guy who could be the 1-1, Christian McCaffrey's that guy.